Just came back from the nursery and purchased 3 new bare root trees. I'm going to go through the process of planting these and kind of just show you how I do it. Several months ago, utilized my broad fork, loosened the soil, came in, added an amendment in the form of the compost that I grow here natively on the property, and then I covered all of that with pallet sheets, and then on top of that went all of these wood chips. You can see our soil type. It's a very wet, heavy clay. These trees will do fine in this soil type once they get established. But at this point, if I were to plant these in this heavy soil and plant them very deeply where the roots would not be able to breathe and not be able to drain, it would straight kill these trees before they were established. These trees are starting to try to break dormancy, and they need to either be put into the soil now or repotted. That's actually what they were doing down at the nursery when I picked these up this morning. They're starting now to pull these out of the beds and get them repotted. I like to face the graft union right here. I'll turn that and face it north because I get them, most of the sun exposure is coming from the south, and that just kind of helps to protect that graft union from any sun scald. I want this graft union to be well above the level of the soil. So I want my soil to come in probably somewhere about here. Over time, the roots will find their way down into the more clay soil, but at this point they're going to need plenty of room to breathe as a new tree. I'm going to make sure that I set that up fairly high. Just start to bring that material in, and I'll just take some of this soil and mulch, bring it up around. Take these clumps that I pulled out that was the winter wheat that was planted in here, and I'll just turn them, flip them back over. They gave us $3 off on each of these trees. This one represents the size of the caliper. It's 5/8 inch caliper. This one represents the rootstock, and then this one is actually the variety of what this particular tree is. This is a flavor top nectarine. If you're in a sandy soil, you might want a different type of rootstock. If you're in more of a heavy clay soil, as what we have, you're going to want to select for a specific rootstock because you may wind up getting that tree to grow initially, but over time, that tree is going to wind up dying. You may not know the reason why. For point of reference, this is the rootstock. You can see where the graft union is here. So I bought 3 different varieties of peach and nectarine today, and they're all planted on this same rootstock. It's a good rootstock for heavy soils, soils that tend to remain wet. The thing that I'm going to want to do is to try to get it up, you know, fairly high so that I'm not planting it down low into that heavy wet clay soil. That's going to be very important in the early stages of this tree. If I were to plant that deep at this point, it probably would kill this tree. Plants don't like wet feet. They like to be able to have good drainage, so you need to be able to ensure that at this initial stage. You can come in a little closer maybe. In this instance, I would just want to make sure that these roots have room to spread out. Sometimes this is much larger, and you may have to chop this out like I did on that tree back there. You might have to open this up a little bit more. But I want this to set up fairly high. So I'm going to actually start filling in a little bit of this material. Now this right here, what I pulled out, this root mass, is kind of a cover crop that I had planted in here just to kind of hold the soil, to get a living root in here to encourage that development of soil life. So when I chop it out, I can go ahead and flip it over, leave it in there to decompose, but I'm not going to put it in this way so that it continues to grow. But I can use this as filler underneath here. It's loaded with worms and all kinds of other stuff that is finding that pretty enjoyable. So I'm going to plant right on top of that stuff. That'll provide a little bit of extra drainage until this tree gets established. I kind of like the way that looks there. Then I'm going to go ahead and start filling in around this. One of the things I'll do as well is just, if I need to raise it up, I'll pull the tree up, fill underneath it. Because what you're trying to do at this point is just keep the roots so that they're not going to dry out, and they're going to find their way. Those little feeder roots that are coming off the main roots will find their way down and through that, and then they'll get established as time goes on. So I'm going to continue to bring material in and around this, even though the roots are just beneath this. I could probably pull this ball out here, flip it over, just to kind of discourage that from continuing to grow. I want to kill this cover crop. And in between those daffodils, I've also planted allium, and I've also planted garlic. And all of that stuff is to provide a bit of function to this space. I'm not only getting some food value in the garlic that I'm planting, but it's also providing some confusion to pests that may come in, whether those be moles and voles. Same with the daffodils. The daffodils provide beauty, but they also provide pollination, as bees are going to be attracted to that. And then I'm going to have comfrey as well that's been planted in and around this. I'm going to put a little bit of compost around each one of these that I've just set. This compost is probably about 6 months old. You want to come down here and get a closer look at that. You can see what it consists of, but there's a lot of nice worms in it. I'm just going to go ahead and dress the top of each one of these mounds. As we near the summer planting season, the plan is to plant into this compost things that will be able to occupy this space and sprawl out. Things such as pumpkins and different squash and watermelon. Things that need a lot of room to sprawl will be growing right from these mounds that I've been creating. They'll be watered from this system that I put in. This is just a drip line. It's got holes every 6 inches. It's on a timer, which I can set to whatever intervals I so choose. But that will water automatically these mounds and just kind of lessens my workload as far as trying to keep this stuff watered and maintained throughout the heat of the summer. I am going to do a little pruning. These are the pruners that I use. These are a really great pruner, actually. They're Okasune's. Inexpensive, but they hold an edge really well, and they're quite quality for the amount that you pay. So whenever you get a tree from the nursery, it's got just, they leave way too many leaders on it, so you're going to need to prune this stuff back. These are too close, so I'm going to need to pull one of those off. We'll leave that there for now. When you're planting a bare root tree straight from the nursery, to understand it's more about shaping the tree to get a good tree structure and to develop the roots that need to get established before you start trying to work on putting on fruit. These trees are going to try to put on fruit, but I want to actually discourage that, so I'm going to prune this accordingly. A nice structure so that you've got several different main branches coming off that you can build from. But everything up to about chest height needs to, and then I'll try to keep this tree pruned so that it's down at a level where I can pick most of the fruit from the ground level. These trees typically don't get that big, and I want to encourage it to kind of stay manageable as far as me being able to not have to get up on a ladder. Well, all right. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.